Hello and welcome. It's about that time we continue with our conversation that we started having with Comrade Yerima Shetima, President of Arewa Youth Consultative Forum. So much to talk about. And so, Comrade, we're back.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to come right back into the conversation, but first, let's have the special report. We'll be right back. The raging spate of violence in Nigeria has continued to defy all forms of approach at resolving it. Virtually all parts of Nigeria face this challenge, which ranges from banditry in the northwest, kidnapping on our highways, the IPOB menace in the southeast, killer headsmen in the southwest and the Middlebelt, to insurgency in the northeast. Particularly, the new trend of hostage taking for huge ransom, mostly borne by the government, has become rather too often and smacks of complicity from very high quarters.
We also have situations where children are kidnapped at different level and at different intervals, and what happens at the end of the day is that we take money to go and beg them to release our children to us. So if you are now on a negotiation table, who determines the pace of where the pendulum swings to? Now if you look at all this, the question is, who is having upper hand as at now? Can we conveniently, boldly, truthfully say that our security is having an upper hand?
Public outcry against this trend has dominated national discourse, with some sectors resorting to self-help by way of vigilante groups, like in the case of Amotekun in the southwest and JTF in the north, a measure that is more or less official by now. The attendant fear and anxiety have brought about a rhetoric of fury as people trade accusations and counter-accusation as to who is responsible for the dastardly acts.
We have avalanche of laws in this country that criminalizes terrorism. We have avalanche of laws in this country that criminalizes kidnapping, abduction, and the like. Now, all these laws have not been put to place against any one of these people. To the best of my knowledge, look at the number of those that were arrested, and after arrest, they will be handed over to their governors as repentant terrorists. This is the only country in the whole world that have had that people will kill villagers, turn children to orphan overnight, sack a whole village, destroy properties that are worth millions of naira, destroy the economy of a state, and at the end of the day, the state itself, the security agencies will hand them over to their governors, and they will be received with high level of puppetry and then joy and all those stuff like that.
Ethnic and religious profiling have regrettably featured too prominently in the blame game, and it is only serving to exacerbate the already bad situation.
Yes. I feel terrible when Nigerians, the average Nigerian, sees crime and criminality within a narrow prison of tribe or religion. It's in vogue now world over that Muslims are really the culprits. Xenophobia. Muslims are seen as terrorists because terrorism is a multi-billion-dollar industry all over. And Muslims, unfortunately, have where it takes because mainly the oil wells are with the Muslim countries. It's all about that.
Dialogue, it is reckoned, holds a potential to ultimately resolve the spate of violence and consolidate our effort at national integration. But just how can we aggregate our opinions to make the dialogue measure work as we seek a violence-free Nigeria? Welcome back. Well, Comrade, something happened in our nation. There was a youth revolt. That's what I call it, even though some people recognize it as something else, aka NSAS, when it happened just before the COVID coming fully. Now, what do you think that was a vote of no confidence on the present crop of leadership, as it were? Because that issue, that revolt brought attention to the inadequacy in the numerical strength of our security personnel, their trainings, and all sorts of things, and even the general attitude. Now, looking back, do you think that these issues have been addressed, or you think that we have swept this away again?
The issue of the case of NSAS was neither here or there. Genuinely, people have intention, very good intention, and when the protest started, certain injustices have been meted on particular section of a country or particular people in the society, and they revoke to say, look, there are certain things that are not within the law. Certain people are taking advantages of the law, perpetuating all sort of evil against certain people. Yes, there's nothing wrong in arresting somebody who commit one trouble or you suspected he commit a crime. Go through the processes, but at the end of the day, some of them, out of overzealous within the police ranks, some of them went out of their way. They begin to commit more crime than even those who are accused of committing a certain crime. So because they do things with all impunity, and that's not law. So to an extent, people have right to revoke and say, look, this thing must be right. But at the end of the day, when the struggle came up, there was no face, and people now took advantage. A common armed robber, because he has one problems with also the Nigerian police force or somewhere, he took advantage because one of his colleagues died in the course of one operation. They put into themselves. The Yahoo man who already is busy, the only thing he knows, that not even the God that created him, the fear of SARS police is the beginning of wisdom by him, and he now suddenly got an advantage that this is another means to ensure that these police are completely off payback time. They took advantage. So all form of character came into that. At a point, even those who initially organized the NSAS, who are genuinely fighting the cause, suddenly lost control. Now it becomes something else, and at the end of the day, certain things begin to happen, and all sort of atrocities and all crimes again come over. So this is just the angle I look at the NSAS. Ordinarily, of course, some of us actually have sympathy for those people genuinely who started and were willing to be part of them. But when we notice the thing is taking a different dimension and there's no faith, nobody wants to take responsibility. In the other part of the country, we ensure that we protected our people and ask them to come down, let us have a look. At the end of the day, we have been vindicated on that.
Yeah,
but certainly, definitely, there was reason for that protest.
Closely related to that is this issue of as a way of actually assuaging or attending to that issue. It's this issue of youth inclusiveness in governance generally. The young people want to be involved with things that are going on, or possibly even take over affairs of the country. That's one way of trying to see how we get things back to normal and everybody it's at peace. And then one other one is this issue of rotational presidency. It's been in the north, it's been in the south. Again, we're talking about rotation this time. Particularly, most seriously heard of is the Igbo presidency talk. That the presidency has to be there for us to actually redefine ourselves as a nation and to emphasize the togetherness that we are.
Kali,
I don't know how.
Let me answer those questions, but let me start with the issue of inclusiveness of the youth into governance. The fact of the matter is that the youth need to buckle up. As a student of struggle, I just knew, and of course to an extent I knew truly, issue of governance is not an issue, or leadership is not an issue that you just assume that people, especially the way it is today in the Nigerian context, you just assume people will just sit down, especially these cadres. You just assume they'll just sit down on their own, the elites, and say, look, come and take power or come and be part of, unless they truly believe that they can confide on you, they have give you a mentorship, they have prepared you to take certain position and to further complement what they are doing. They will hardly bring you from nowhere and put you into this something. But I am of the view that a time has come that all of us must collectively, irrespective of where we come from or our religious differences or ethnicity, cannot be as to why we cannot come together. I've come to a conclusion that, and so far, we are working on that, getting across to our counterparts in southern part of the country to ensure that even the law that has been enacted and this issue of code of not too young to run is not even, it's far beyond it. People must come into the game. People must participate. Not only participating, we must take ownership of most of these processes. And it's not just a tea party where you think you just sit down and begin to make noise and begin to threaten people, and you just think it's just fall like that without putting certain things on ground. So we are working towards that to ensure that come to play. And the issue
no, it cannot be handed over to you just because
no, because it's not enough. It's not enough, but you have to fight
power
for it.
is to be taken.
It's to be taken.
Not to be
That's the truth. Nobody gives you, even in history, nobody gives you power. You have to take it. And I'm sure with our strength, the numbers that today we have constituted over 65 to 70%, it's no story. If we are determined, willing to come together, we can get it.
Insecurity seems to dominate all conversations around these days. From herdsmen, killer herdsmen, herdsmen versus farmers quarreling. There's insurgency, there is terrorism, there's kidnapping, there's banditry, all sorts of things. Remember, armed robbery and the other forms of violence are all still happening. How does this worry you as a statesman? Is this beginning to define our new identity? Is this a new normal for us as Nigerians?
Well, Kali is so unfortunate that the situation has turned out to be this, but this is not what a lot of us have actually envisaged, because we thought by now we should have been doing better than we were today. But unfortunately, today, the issue of insecurity has already made the country and really disturbing. And to some of us who are already there, to an extent, we hardly sleep with our two eyes closed, and oftentimes it becomes something that one cannot just imagine. Beyond just what you see on papers and televisions, Kali, you need to be on ground to see the damage, the harm, and the crimes going on. To an extent, all of this you made mention of, for me, I see them as crime. There's no any other language best you can describe them, but rather call them crime being committed against humanity. And to that extent, I strongly believe that it takes all hands must be on decks to bring about this issue and this madness to order. Now,
comrade, we see the situation has continued unchecked. So a lot of people think because the willpower to deal with the insurgents, with terrorists, with bandits, or whatever name you call them, is somehow suspect. It's not very, very clear. That's why some people will even say that some persons are beginning to play politics with all of this. The ones to see that we will identify, why do people come out and even claim responsibility sometimes, and yet it is so difficult to deal with them? What's going on?
It's really unfortunate. Like you have earlier said, it takes people with political will to address some of these issues, and unfortunately we don't have such leaders in the country. And to them, some of them look at it as if it's an issue that has nothing to do with them, for as long as they believe strongly they have security around their vicinities and they are well protected by states. To them, those who are supposed to take responsibility and do it right believe that no, it has nothing to do with them, because this is a funny country where people don't attach value to common people. Life is not an issue to them, and life doesn't really matter to them for as long as it does not affect their family or affect them directly. And this is very unfortunate. But my worry and my fear, especially where I come from in northern part of the country, is that we'll get to a point, if this madness is not put in check, a time will come that nobody will be safe in northern part of the country. Very unfortunate for them. They had mansions all over the places, living very large with their cars, and their next neighbors are all living in an abject poverty. They cannot feed a one-time square meal in a day, and they think they're just having a luxury of it. But I certainly have no doubt in my mind with the way it is today. If measures are not taken immediately, we will find a situation where everywhere there will be chaos. Nobody will be exempted and nobody will be exonerated. Everybody will be victim. And I have that fear. May God forbid that day.
Okay, Shetima, we'll come back and continue this conversation. Well, this is Violence Free World. I'll be right back after this time out. Welcome back. This is Violence Free World. Now, comrade, you said about power is to be taken and not to be given.
To be given.
But certain persons, based on utterances that we've heard, is that alludes to the fact that it is our turn now. If you want us in this country together,
Those are two different narratives.
Yes.
The narratives here,
but it's about
is about give and take. Now, yes. The two narratives now, you don't forget that the agitations from the southeast part of the country is a particular section of the country. Now it's not collectively. Even when I talk about power taking, I'm not talking about a particular section because we're talking about Nigeria. Nigeria must be seen to be project where everybody will key into it, unanimously agree that yes, the youth will have to agree and take position to say, look, this is exactly what we want, jointly, not minding where anybody comes from. That will not come to the fore. Our issue of religious cannot come to the fore. We will all agree that this is what we want. Collectively, we will discuss it and resolve to say, look, unanimously we have agreed today on certain day that this is what we're going to work as a project to ensure that we achieve it. And everybody will decide with that responsibility to go back to his constituency, his community, and everywhere to ensure that he works towards that particular goal. That's a different scenario. The case of Igbo presidency, don't forget that Igbo is just a tribe in the country. Or let us even consider it regional. We have 6 regions now in the country. For me, the Igbo, if you ask me, the Southeast, I'll say they are not prepared. It's not about talking. It's not about threats. And I've said it oftentimes in public, in so many fora. If you are prepared, nobody is saying that is not your right, like any other Nigerian. But you cannot get it by putting fear in the minds of people. You cannot get it by mere intimidation, because Nigeria has come over age. Nobody can intimidate anybody any longer. We are a product of this struggle. We have come a long way. The issue is about lobby. The issue is about going to the center, work side by side with other counterparts. But you sit down in your comfort zone and you think you can threaten people. No, that will not go anywhere. People are so exposed. Issue of violence cannot be an answer. That somebody or somewhere just sit down on his little enclave with his mere little thinking and think that any other impact is making in his own region is what other people are feeling. You are making a total mistake. Nobody can hold anybody to ransom. And I advise the Igbo, and oftentimes I've said it. We've said this thing in 2017 vividly. Something happened, and it has been in the history of this country. When I led a group of over 17 northern organizations, we give quick notice. I led the group. We did not do what we do at that time because we wanted to witch hunt anybody. But we did it to prove to them they don't have monopoly of violence. But we give them a signal, not because we even did the violent. But you could see what we did. Change the narrative instantly. We did what we did at that time. I led the group. Despite all the threats I received. Despite the declaration I was declared wanted by the states. And also side by side with my governor, Nasru El-Rufai, that they must brought me to book, they will do all of this. We stood our grounds. We ensure that nobody is hurt in the other part of the country, but we merely pronounce the country, everybody is panicking. Just pronunciations. We did that one to tell them, no, you don't have the monopoly of violence. If we begin to talk in that manner you are talking, everybody will be victim. At the end of the day, what happened? We begin to hear from their kinsmen, we are not part of this so-called Biafran struggle. Because this young man who today eventually become a leader of so-called group called IPOB or whatever you call it, we know the beginning. My organization have an understanding between AYCF and Mass of Struggle. We've known them for a very long time. They are not violent, and we are not violent too. If there are issues that affect our people, there is communication breach within ourselves. We say, look, there are certain areas where our people are being threatened. Can you please call this your people, your tribes to order? And that's the same thing even the IPOB are doing, the MASOP are doing to us. And over time, there's always been peace until this man just came out from nowhere. I used to know him to be one of the directors of MASOP struggle. And all of a sudden, he felt that probably he wants to make it on his own and just spring up from nowhere. He was never part of any popular struggle. I have never known him to be any associate of Nadeko struggle. I have never known him to be any associate of Pronaco struggle, campaign for democracy. Those are struggles we did way back since the days of military. And almost all of this kid that you see today we are talking about, Asari was part of struggle. Ralph was part of struggle. Ganadam was part of struggle. Those are my contemporaries who almost came out from state. Age-wise, I'm their youngest. But to an extent, we have the picture of what struggle is all about. Though even though some of them decide to go into armed struggle, but subsequently came back to their normal. I was the only one, and maybe probably Masop, that do not partake in any armed struggle at the beginning. We remain where we are. We only stand on advocacy, and over time things have been normal until this guy just came out from nowhere and suddenly begin to talk about IPOB. And today some of these politicians, unfortunately for them, because they are so blind for power, the key behind him fund him to unleash terror on innocent Nigerians, and they believe this man is a messiah. Unknowingly to them, he's doing more bad to them than good. Nobody will sit down with that threat you think you are giving, will fold his hand and think that he will just sit down and give you power. And of course, muzzle of power to threaten people. I do not think the Southeast can just wake up one day and say they overwhelm the entire country. Certainly not. So I am of the view that this is not the approach to go about it. Agitations, yes. Genuine agitation, yes. Without violence, yes. Make your demands very clear. But not today. On one side, they will talk about sovereign national conference, balkanization of the country. You are talking about balkanizing the country. You don't have a power, you don't have means to do that, and you don't go through the processes. Of course, I'm aware that there are procedures if you want to go on your own. Right to self-determination is guaranteed under the international law, which Nigeria is signatory to it, even though within locally in our constitution, the constitution has not been amended yet to create room for exit where there will be referendum. It's not in our constitution. It's alien yet. But the UN, where these things are, you can always go back to UN and make your protest, demand that the UN must compel Nigerian government to sit down and amend the constitution, so that at the end of the day there will be exit for you. If you want to call for a referendum, then where is the provision to organize any referendum in the country? No, it's not there. Those are procedures. Go through the process. You don't just wake up one day from your hangover and you just think about, you call for a referendum, let there be referendum. Is that how it's done in anywhere? I do not think it's done like this. Though my wish, every day my prayer, I pray that the country still remains together, because there's hope if we remain together, and we can do better than going separately. I've always been optimistic about the country, and I believe strongly there'll be light at the end of the tunnel. No matter how rough it is today, I have no doubt in my mind we are going to come out of these challenges.
Well, as we went down, let me give you the opportunity to give your word of advice, particularly to young people who are beginning to see violence as an alternative way out, especially because of the way the authorities have responded to them, which is more like placating them and putting them above the people who have been terrorized, as we get our nation together back on track.
Well, my advice to them is that violence does not pay at all. And my advice is to others who are even thinking, not even those who are already in it, even those who are thinking, I don't think it's an option. I think collectively we can sit down and resolve issues. We can come to round table and discuss. Anywhere in the world today, nowhere troubles are being solved with violence. At the end of the war, people must sit down and resolve and agree amicably that this is the way forward, and that's how it's done anywhere. So I'm of the view that all of us must come together, one, to protect our country. There's no better home than this country. And I've always said over time, there's no better home than this country. You need to travel out and see how you've been treated out there. And when you come back to Nigeria, you begin to feel something. An average Nigerian in this country is a king compared to any other country. So let us build our country and do better than all these madness and so on and so forth. So I don't think it will yield well. So to those who are thinking of nursing the same idea, let them come back to their normal senses. Let us build a country that we can all be proud of.
Welcome. I think that's a very, very good point to anchor it. At this point, I'd like to thank you very much for finding time to oblige me.
Thank you, Mr. Kali.
All right. I've been speaking with Comrade Yerima Shetima, the president of Arewa Youth Consultative Forum. This has been Violence Free World. Same time next week promises even a better edition if you endeavor to be here. Until then, please remember to remain on the road to a violence-free Nigeria. Thank you for watching. Bye.
No more.